take the tasty dessert that is 10-ban system. For those of you that haven't seen it yet, the first half of the draft remains exactly the same from splits gone by. 3 bans followed by 3 picks for each team, and then things will get a little crazy as we get into phase 2.
Yes, indeed. So the first one that we take off the board is Jace, banned by Origin on their side. It has been starting to show up quite a lot more on the 7.1 patch.
But it's not exactly one that I would expect to come right out of the gates. Champions across the world that have been banned out specifically or picked in every single game. Zyra, Rengar, Camille, Maokai, and Ryze are all 100% in LPL and LCK pick or ban. I expect to see at least 4 of them in this first phase of bans. 2 of them, well, one has gone already.
Boom.
LeBlanc also has a very high pick ban ratio right now.
Yeah, and Camille makes a whole lot of sense as well. I mean, it's a very, very powerful champion right now that everyone has been trying to get their hands on.
But it's on blue side Camille ban right now. I would have expected Origin, if they were prepared to take it out of the top or jungle, to have left it available for themselves. And with now another jungle hit coming out from this Rengar, Wisdom has to start digging a little deeper into his champion pool.
Well, we'll see if he can definitely stack up. I think it's an interesting point you talk about with Camille on the side of Origin, because it does seem to be a champion that is a little bit, I don't want to say out of character for Sartorius, since he made his name on these like top AP tanky champions.
Absolutely. I don't really expect to see Sartorius taking a duelist matchup, and from the top lane to the mid lane, Cassiopeia, another pick that is seeing high prominence around the world. We've seen a lot of Syndra coming out as well. So Origin are setting themselves up perhaps to pick Ryze first as their first pick and not have too many answers left available in that mid lane. Orianna would be the one that H2K would probably want to pull against it.
But we have the Katarina ban, so the Syndra will get left up, and so will the Ryze. Curious to see if Origin wants to opt for their mid lane early on in this pick and ban phase. It could very well be the case, and it's one of the champions we have seen Nahun play.
And at this point, we look over to the other side. Jungle, top lane, all have prominence, as does the support. Lee Sin would be a pick for Jankos. We have seen time and time again. If he wants to force Wisdom out of his comfort zone, an early and uncharacteristic Rek'Sai would be available, because that's likely what Wisdom will default to. We've seen it time and time again in Challenger. That is his go-to pick when it is available.
Yeah, interesting. I don't think... Oh, wait a minute. He's going to just lock the Kha'Zix with Lee Sin up, with Elise up. This is something special from H2K.
We've seen Kha'Zix a couple of times already on 7.1. It's as carry champion as you can get out of the jungle, and the Lee Sin matchup, if Wisdom wants it, is okay against Kha'Zix. We have seen it go both ways in the last few days, but as for this second pick now on the rotation from H2K, I'm wondering, where do they look at now? Do they flex a Karma? Do they pick up something that they can put in multiple positions?
Well, they will take the Varus. I mean, that is technically your flex pick, even though we are more likely to see it in that AD carry position. So that's locked in, potentially for Nuclear, and the picks are back to Origin.
Yeah, we saw a couple of Varus games out in some of the series in LCK as well. Obviously, we've only got 2 days of play to go from. Did see it in that AD carry role. A couple of good catches in the KT series from the other day.
All right, so there is the Rek'Sai that we're predicting here. And the Ashe, another high-tier AD carry locked in for Tabs. So they're building themselves, you know, what appears to be a fairly solid front line, and they have a lot of engage on the side of Origin. How is H2K going to answer this?
Well, H2K right now have the pick of the litter as we round out phase 1 of the draft. We've seen a couple of crazy things come out from the support. The Malzahar hover will kind of tell you a lot, that it is at least in the minds of the players, but it's mid lane we go as we head into the new phase of the draft. Phase 2 has begun of the ban phase. Now each team will have 2 further bans before we finish out the draft.
Yep, you can think about it like the old pick and ban phase, but you have to slice it open, stick a couple more bans in there, and it's like a pick ban sandwich.
Now this Syndra pick, obviously going into the Ryze is an okay pick, will have the ability to snowball. And you can see there already prominence down into that bottom lane support role. It's one of the roles that is still available for H2K. Here come the target bans, and this would indicate a Zyra pickup coming out from Che. With the Misfortune off the table, that's one of the picks that does very well at punishing picks like Ashe, who have that fairly short range. Zyra can harass her down.
Also counts as a takeaway too. The Ashe Zyra lane has been one of the more impressive ones we've seen in recent times, and they won't have the chance to pick it. Do you think this is something that Origin themselves will now ban away?
If they don't, I would be incredibly surprised. They are focusing the top side of the map, though, with that Rumble. Don't want Odoamne having his hands on that from before. But Odoamne has a lot of options still available. The Poppy is up. The Maokai is still available as well.
Yeah, I think for Odo, this is going to be a fantastic season. I'm not just pulling that out of the fact that he's been one of the most consistent top laners we've had in EU. There's so many things he can play up in that top lane that we've seen continuing from Worlds all the way on. So Kennen's banned away. That's something else Origin don't want to have to deal with.
But that's, a top lane pick that we haven't really seen too much of recently. I mean, people have been trying it a couple of other areas on the map, but I don't know whether you're that much more afraid of Odoamne's Kennen than you should be of Che's Zyra if he ends up picking it up here. Red side get the first pick in pick phase 2 as well here, and will have the last pick of the draft. There is the Zyra, and in my opinion, that is a real, bad kind of setup from Origin to ban out the Kennen and leave the Zyra available. It's so strong in that bottom lane.
Yeah, it's been pretty consistently pick banned in the games we've seen on 7.1, and Che is a very reliable player. This is a super pokey bottom lane, and Tabs and Hiva are going to have to watch their backs. There's a Maokai locked in for Sartorius, so something we definitely could have predicted there. And of course, it will go back to Odoamne for the final. After this last pickup, we are still waiting on support.
And Hiva is one of the most aggressive supports we've had in European Challenger. Alistair, Thresh, supports that will try and get a fight started are exactly what he likes. His bread and butter was when Annie was such a big playmaker, but he's departing that completely. And now that either tells you Origin have somebody else to really call the shots and look for starting engagements, or Hiva's just playing out of his comfort zone.
Quite possibly, but maybe he's been practicing a little in the offseason, trying to get for those more pokey supports that he can play back a little bit. Ashe Karma's still a very powerful lane. This Shen, though, I would love this from Odoamne. It gets him into fights and into engagements a lot easier than just that teleport alone.
It's also a lane that is easily played into the Maokai as well. I mean, Maokai is not really going to pressure out the Shen at all. Shen should be able to sit there fairly comfortably. And look at the assassination potential that H2K have across the board. The Syndra, you've got the Kha'Zix to set it up as well. And you've got Shen to compensate for some of the squishiness, perhaps, that they'll have out of that jungle. So high damage coming out of H2K, whereas Origin, lower damage to begin this game. They're running for a later game composition with the Maokai, with the Rise. The same can be said from their bot lane as well. Good utility, great utility to get a fight started. But if H2K start getting ahead in this, if Forbiven gets kills, if Jankos gets kills, this game could get out of hand for Origin very quickly.
It could indeed. H2K can play very aggressive with the comp they build for themselves, and Origin certainly have to watch their backs as we take down the final timer, setting those summoners up and everything. And it's been a while for both of them. For some of these players that haven't gotten too many chances to play on the LCS stage too, this has got to be a massive moment for them. Huge chip on the shoulder of Origin for an organizational standpoint as the coaches shake hands, walking off stage. Oh, it's going to be big.
Oh yeah, this is going to be a good game. I do wonder now, coming out of ban phase 2, how integral is that Zyra going to be? Because not many teams have let Zyra go all that way through the draft, through ban phase 2. So yeah, we'll have to see whether pushing Odoamne onto something like a Shen is enough, or whether it is too big of a mountain for Origin to climb above.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not going to be the most aggressive in lane unless he lands the taunt into the minions, but Maokai can deal with that just fine. We're going to focus so much on the bottom lane. We're going to focus on that mid. We're going to focus on the entire map, I think. And it sounds like everyone's pretty excited in the audience here. We're loading up onto the Rift for game number 1 of the European LCS Spring Split. And don't forget, you guys, online, keep your Twitters handy, because if you think Origin can take number 1, well, go ahead and hop on at OL Esports as a place. Hashtag OG winner if H2K is going to do it. Hashtag H2 what?
H2K win is what you want to hashtag for that one, as we are on the Rift. First best of 3 of the European LCS. First time we're loading up for 2017 here as well. I'm ready. So Origin, because they're trying to find Che to begin this game out. Maybe looking for Nuclear as well.
Oh boy.
Oh,
they're going to spot it.
They've been spotted.
Che knows exactly what's up right now. It was a nice try from Origin, but the cheese has been revealed.
It gives away now information on the top side of the map as well, because Jankos, they know they can go into the top side, get wards down, spot out the early jungle start. I'm not expecting Origin to pull anything particularly tricky, but it's Jankos that maybe wants to do it for himself. He's waiting for somebody to cross through here. Odoamne hasn't skilled yet. In case he just ends up taking taunt from this, catches Wisdom, or potentially Nahian coming into the lane.
They're bringing 3 themselves. This could turn into an ugly level 1 if they want it.
We also saw, oh, hang on, Wisdom.
Nahun's going to walk right into it. He has to burn his flash. Instant exhaust onto Jankos. They turn their attention to Wisdom, and in comes Febivin. Dark Sphere means the rest of Origin will not want to take that fight, and it ends up being a couple of summoners blown from Origin's mid lane.
Jankos doesn't know he was on a ward there. It was placed around about the time the whole skirmish started happening, so Jankos is denying the blue take from Wisdom to try and get as much as he can from this setting, because Jankos was so far behind that his early clear would have been a little bit difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting start to this game, too, with both junglers being set behind. Odoamne and Satorius moving up towards the top side to take their places. Everything else as expected in the mid and on the bottom. Let's take a look at our summoners, or keystones, I should say, rather. A lot of tankiness on that side of Origin.
No surprise there when you've got the tanky style that Origin want to play, bringing 2 Courage of the Colossus to the game, and then Kha'Zix brings Thunderlords.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, you want to do all the damage. Gone are the days of Strength of the Ages and every jungler taking it.
Yeah, exactly. But as we look on this bottom lane, a lot of people talking about Nuclear and Che, and now Tabs and Hiva, how are they going to match up against each other? As Jankos is very low, if they were in Invade, perhaps
they're pinging him too.
Yeah, they know he's seemingly quite low. They're expecting him to be there, but shouldn't be too detrimental. I'm expecting Nuclear and Che to be able to hold their own and go even against every bot lane that we've got and win some of the matchups they have against the bottom tier teams. Very easy, very comfortable.
Yeah. On Origin's side, Tabs and Hiva, I mean, you look at this pair on paper, and they're definitely not lacking too much for experience. Hiva, having been in the challenger scene for a long, long time, and even if he has the tendency to be one of the more blindly aggressive supports, he still can get results done. Tabs has had a pedigree, but we just haven't seen much out of him lately, and you know, they kind of have to step up and prove that they still can play. Yeah,
I mean, Tabs, we saw him in Challenger for a while, and honestly was kind of struggling even to maintain a top Challenger AD carry status. He had a lot of good games, but you know, when you started seeing players like Hans Sama come in, that everybody was making a lot of noise about, Tabs seemingly started to get left behind, and we'll see if he gets left behind on this, because he's actually running up all the way towards Jankos now. I think H2K kind of have an inkling it's happening. When the whole bot lane disappears, you kind of have to wonder.
Yeah, Wisdom's coming too here. I mean, that was all because of the ward that Hiva placed early on. Jankos knows he's going to get the smite down, so they really can't get much done and just, in fact, lose out a little bit of lane presence here. Wisdom is going to get his Skull Crab clear on down towards the bottom side, but a lot of jungler focus has been in this lane right now, and it's a curious thing to see if that continues.
A good amount of help from Hiva as well, warding in the lower side jungle, so they knew exactly where Jankos was. They could have predicted it pretty much from his pathing. Anyway, Jankos now, they know where Wisdom is. He will get spotted out on some of this vision here, and Wisdom may be looking to turn, but Che has got him boxed in.
Oh boy, ooh, it avoids the grasping roots. Takes a pot shot on the back half, and they place the ward not quite in the brush, but Wisdom sneaks out with his life. A lot of near misses to start this game off. We're only 4.5 in.
Yeah, we are only 4.5 in. You know, we've seen Nathan already back away from that mid lane, pick himself up a tier of the Goddess as well, which kind of forced Febivin to back away and get himself Lost Chapter, pick up a control ward for some extra vision control. Satorius, he's on Maokai. This is a comfortable one for him. He's able to teleport back up to the top.
Yeah, no problem for Satorius. There's another player that is you know, coming in and having his LCS start, but we'll talk about that a little bit later as Wisdom is on the gank path. They can't get any CC lockdown, so Nuclear and Che have backed off to safety once again.
Flash for flash in the bot lane. Hiva flashed on Che, which forced him to flash in response, otherwise it would have locked him down.
It's pretty flashy.
So, a little bit more emphasis on the bottom lane than I think H2K would have liked right now, but when you look at it, it's 2 tanks in the top lane. It's Syndra and Ryze in the mid lane, who, until Syndra hits 6, isn't really going to be able to do too much against Ryze, and even then he's Ryze, so kind of survives most things as well. H2K would like to divert attention a little further away from that bot lane for now, though.
Satorius is going to get the ward on. Spot to Jankos up towards top side. That's a question we had to ask ourselves quite a lot coming into this week, prepping for it all. Where was H2K going to focus their jungle attention? With Febivin now occupying the mid lane, a role that previous mid laner Ryu had a lot of attention out of him. Would that translate to Odoamne, or would that instead be transferred down towards bottom? So far, it has seemed to be the bot, not by their own choice.
Exactly. This game is very in the top lane for a while.
No, in fact, Shen comes to you.
Well, yeah, Shen can come to you, and he can now as well. Odoamne just hit 6. Important timing from Sartorius using his TP into the lane allows Odoamne to use his in response and have Stand United available. This might be the opportunity that H2K over the next minute or so have to really blow this game wide open. If everybody comes down to the bottom lane again, Shen will be able to get there, Maokai won't.
Yeah, level 6, very important when you're dealing with the Shen. And obviously, ultimates are pretty impactful for most champions in the game. Nonetheless, it's a big deal. Sartorius is still sitting on 5, of course, even if he could teleport into the action. You can see the bot lane's backing away down bottom, and Jankos is actually going to go a roaming.
And look at this. This is because Nahyun backed away. This is his second recall already from mid lane, allows Jankos to move into the enemy jungle, clear out a control ward. He sees that Wisdom is now very low, and Jankos, only level 4, does have a disadvantage, but knows that at least for the first portion of that, Febiven would have been able to roam and get there quicker than Nahyun will. That level 1 ult is still fairly low range on Ryze, so didn't want to get caught out in a situation where he had to try and save Wisdom.
Nahyun definitely having a lot to prove here. This is a guy we've only seen in Korean Challenger, and he didn't manage to win a game, LSPL.
This is interesting. Nuclear and Shay coming all the way across from bottom lane, diverting their attention through. Normally you just see them come back down through the lane. The wave is kind of pushing away from them, and Tabs is pushing it back out. So maybe they were looking to see if they could make a play, catch somebody out in the jungle, but nobody was there.
There's been a huge focus on getting early vision in the oddest of places as they
time.
pop over. Oh boy,
Tabs
and Hiva, they don't see this.
Does he know? Oh, if Hiva goes to ward, this will be so bad.
And
they lock him
caught
down.
Him, locked him in, goes Jankos. Hiva is down. First blood for the First Blood King.
Oh, that couldn't have gone much better for H2K. The 3-man blasting plant acrobatics show over the wall into the First Blood. And Jankos continues his moniker of being the First Blood King. This guy truly is unstoppable when you start looking at these early game skirmishes. You can see last season, 40 First Bloods that he participated in. Insane.
Yeah, this guy is something else. And now you can see why they prioritize the Kha'Zix pickup over something like a Lee Sin. Already starting off to an excellent 1-4. Let's take this one more time. Just take it in.
Olympic gold goes to H2K on the trio gymnastics. And Hiva doesn't really get too much in the way of any help from the judges.
I mean, that just feels bad, man. Unfortunately, still didn't have his flash up and available. The exhaust, he knew he was dead. Not much you can do there, so Jankos is able to pick himself up, his first kill of the game. Let's check in how the CS is going, though, because in this bottom lane, it actually has been Tabs outdoing Nuclear in that regard. Can shoot a few more arrows at once. Everything else has been fairly even. I mean, the jungle looked like it was going to be a bit rough of a start for Jankos, but obviously he's made up quite a lot for that. And H2K, they have a slim lead thanks to that First Blood, but it's only about 300 gold, so at 9 minutes, doesn't mean too much.
It's about as good as you're going to get without a significant fight in the bottom side. Just the one catch, really well worked by H2K. A little bit fortunate on their side, knowing that Hiva, after his recall, is going to come out to the river and ward it. I mean, that's not a play that is going to work every time that you 3-man blast plant over the wall. So certainly looks very, very skillful of H2K to pick up, and is a good way of starting this game out for themselves.
They've had Tabs on Wisdom, pardon the pun, pretty much consistently, though, throughout this game, because they keep on moving into that jungle when he's occupied elsewhere. And you can see where the vision focus is. Wisdom up on the top side has been placing some wards. The rest of Origin have followed suit. They have that side of the river, but the Dragon side, it's all H2K.
Yeah, Dragon side is H2K. There are a couple of wards still around that will deny H2K from doing anything particularly strong too early on. Interesting as Wisdom heads into the bottom lane.
Oh, the Ash Arrow lands. Nuclear, the flash in. That might have been overkill there, and Wisdom picks up a kill for himself.
And you could see there wouldn't really have been any response from Odoamne there because he's right next to Sartorius in the top side. A lot of people will be questioning why was there no shield, no summoners used. As soon as that arrow hits, Nuclear is dead, dead, dead in that bottom lane. So they save the summoners for another day.
Yeah, Nahyun now is going to be in a 1v2 situation. Powers unleashed. Jankos actually bails out. He was feeling the heat of the tower as Nahyun melted through the minion wave.
Febiven doesn't have damage yet. Look at his boots. They're Mercury treads as a first buy on Syndra, wanting to survive through some of the damage that Ryze has. Typically, Ryze wants to scale, but he has a fair amount of damage at the same time. Febiven being less about carrying for the team for himself now, being more about setting up fights later. And speaking of setting up fights, gets the knock-up, arrow hits, no response from H2K. Great response in the bottom lane out of Origin.
Yeah, it was well played from them. They did invest 2 flashes to make it happen. I like the one from Wisdom. I don't know if the one from Hiva was 100% necessary, to be completely honest, but it does fit his MO. If there's somebody to kill, he's going in.
He's aggressive. The number of times I've seen him Q-flash people on Alistair again and again and again, just in the laning phase, and get kills in Challenger is insane. However, it doesn't work so much in the LCS.
Or on
and that's
Karma.
where I want to see Hiva kind of round himself out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Karma as well.
I mean, sometimes there's some habits that just die hard. Now, H2K, they've sent Che and Jankos kind of roaming into this jungle to clear some wards out, place a few of their own. They are unfortunately spotted near the red pit, but Wisdom is nowhere to be found. He's up in top side. He's getting his counter jungle on, and there's just a forest of wards here now towards this bottom side. We could be in for, well, I believe it was called a fiesta in the bot lane.
Yeah, it might end up being a bit of a fiesta. I mean, you can see the evolved claws on Jankos.
Febvin wasn't spotted. Well, now they see Jankos. They know what's up.
Obviously, Q evolution is the one that everybody's been going to first as, you know, pick up on the Kha'Zix.
Yeah, that damage.
Gives you that cooldown on the Q decrease when you hit an isolated target. So you find somebody one-on-one and suddenly they die. Wonder where half their health went.
Just about. Nuclear and Che have been keeping Hiva and Tabs penned up in this bottom side. And even though the dive was sniffed out, still keeping the pressure on. Lost a little bit of farm. Tabs has still kept himself ahead of that. However, gold game is in Origin's favor overall, thanks to the equalizing kill that Wisdom was bringing. Nobody really interested in the Dragon either, and there's no rush. It is only a Cloud Drake. Not quite as critical as something like a Mountain or an Infernal. So we could be in for a bit longer of a laning phase. Nahun, however, is going to have to go on the run. Rune Prison, Febvin unleashes the power. He's down to low health, but he's got both summoners available. Flashes over, followed by Jankos. Party Portal, he can't take it. Febvin claims him.
Claims the kill. It took a little longer because of the lack of damage for now from Febvin, but that kill will do it for him. Will allow him to continue his itemization now towards a little bit more damage, and you can see that just the Kha'Zix, the Syndra, that potential is enough. Ultimate was used by Nuclear just to try and get Tabs out of the lane.
Yeah, going back to that mid, this is what H2K's comp is built to do. You were saying it yourself in champion selection, they can get the assassinations off, if they can get the pressure in the early game, they can snowball their lead. But this is not a snowball.
Right.
This is a dead even game at 13 minutes. Origin should be happy with this.
Origin, considering their composition, will be very happy with this. When you look at it, they've got a Maokai who needs a little bit of extra time, needs that first item with those boots, has the Rise, who is, you know, working his way towards his core. This is an acceptable position for Origin to be in for themselves. When they look at this game plan, what do we need? This is exactly it. Sure, they'd love to be ahead, but this is not a worry now for Origin.
Yeah, I do like that Wisdom took the more aggressive track and kind of helped equalize a little bit on the gold on bottom. They didn't just sit back, play the passive game. As Che, speaking of sitting back, he can't get too comfortable there. He got fired on, a lot of damage being dealt to him, and still a problem with Zyra is her relative squishiness to a lot of other supports.
But you know what is also good for Zyra? It's when she can come over with a jungler and do Dragon. 2 people, because your plants tank it up for so long, which is something that Origin have to be careful of. With this push now in the bottom lane, you can see Hiva recalled as well. There is this opening now for H2K to go back into the lower jungle. This is the 3rd or 4th time we've seen this. Every time Hiva backs away, H2K go into the jungle, they get vision control, they get wards, and they try and take away as many of the camps as they can.
There's a difference this time, though. Wisdom is actually here. Jankos is going to smite that real quick. He's got the blast plant. He's out. Jankos manages a nice little steal away from Wisdom. Won't have access to his red buff for a little while longer.
It was a close one. Wisdom was there. Hiva's going to check the brush this time. Didn't quite get a read on exactly how far away Jankos went, so didn't want to end up caught out for a second time. That was the first blood in this game. Of course, H2K jumping the wall and getting the 3 versus 1 on Hiva.
They're living in this jungle right now. Jankos and Febvin are keeping the pressure on, dragging Nahun out of lane as well, who just wants to sit there and scale and farm up as best he can. Febvin will soon have a little bit more damage. He has the Morellonomicon completed for himself. But you're right, the boots, the survivability has been kind of in the back of his mind, that he doesn't have to be this big carry that we saw when he made a name for himself on 2015's Fnatic.
Exactly, and I think when he looks around, he sees Odo Amne, he sees Jankos, Nuclear, Che, he's like, oh, okay, maybe I don't need to carry every single game. So it might be a slight mindset change. I mean, it's not too uncharacteristic to pick up the Merc Treads as well. We'll either see that or, you know, the Sork boots come through. But H2K right now are in a situation where they're trying to extend any kind of a lead they can over Origin, because Syndra and Kha'Zix, if they don't get rolling, could very well get heavily outdamaged by this Ryze and Ashe later into the game.
They're going to try to get rolling. I mean, you see that hawk shot go, and all of a sudden there's a Kha'Zix there. Oh, of course there's a Kha'Zix there. He's not left the entire time. This is going to be the first Tower Blood. They finally finished the job, and you could see Wisdom and Nehun were looking to try and stop that, but they were just too late.
And that's important, because Nuclear had been pushing that out again and again, and we mentioned them going into the jungle, putting down vision control, but the true success of pushing the lane out like that is getting that tower first blood on the bottom side. This unlocks a lot of the rest of the map. You'll see Nuclear likely go up towards the top lane or the mid lane right now, and then Odoamne will change around and end up where he's needed on the map. Keep in mind, both teleports available. Neither top laner has used them in an aggressive stance yet, but look at it. Sartorius, first item has been completed. He's getting towards the time where he wants to be involved in a fight.
Has plenty of sustain available for himself as well. Well, Sartorius hasn't had too much trouble farming. Obviously, it's to be expected against something like a Shen who can't really stop you from doing it. But this is why Maokai has just been so heavily picked on 7.1. He just does everything very, very well, even compared to some of his other, top-tier level tanks. But I really like this Shen pickup. If H2K can start utilizing that Stand United, if they can force the issue a little bit more, it's harder to do in the long lane down bottom, but maybe now's the time to try and focus on Nehun and shut him down.
Yeah, if they can shut Nehun out of the game, that would go a long way. The problem is he's at 170 CS at 17 minutes, but here they try.
Yeah, okay, exhaust is on, and Febiman thinks better of it this time. It does seem like they keep thinking they can go, but they pull the trigger a little slow.
I mean, at this point, Ryze, 170 farm, Rod of Ages completed with a Negatron Cloak and Mercury Treads as well. Syndra that started Merc Treads and only has a Morellinomicon is never going to get that kill without a significant amount of help from Jankos and the rest of the team. Now the rest of the team are around. They can't quite land the damage down through the bottom side jungle, so H2K having a little trouble getting a lot of their damage into useful positions.
You can see that they really want to try to pick up this Cloud Drake, a little bit of extra speed to help them get in position a little faster, but OG are wise to this. They know there's nothing else for them to take on the bottom side of the map right now. They move in, they throw the wards down inside the pit, just outside the pit, and it's frustrating to watch for H2K. They can't really get what they need to do done, and they know there's a timer on this game.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I mean, a lot of analysts and coaches will probably look at this and say, Maokai and Ryze, how did you get such a ticking time bomb composition that at one point Maokai and Ryze will 2v5 the entire enemy team as long as somebody sets them up for a fight? Like, this is the kind of composition that we very rarely see the two champions ever get through together. So Origin, from the draft, I was questioning the Zyra. Perhaps it's H2K questioning this top and mid lane allowance that gets through that we really should be looking at. Because this Maokai came out late, remember. It was in phase 2 of the picks.
Absolutely. And, I mean, so was the Zyra, but it really was a massive surprise towards the back half of that. And teams are still adjusting to this new pick ban format. Jankos is coming out of there. Ooh, the taunt does not land onto Sartorius, who plays it safe. Meanwhile, Wisdom will be up there in the top and getting a little bit of farm for himself. Che trying to dodge away. The Dragon will do a little bit more damage to him. But Origin are in a place that they really like. And to be honest, to come in with expectations of being one of the last place teams in your group, if not the entire LCS, to be able to hold out like this against one of the best teams from last year is impressive.
And at this point, we've got to look at how the pace of the game is being affected by the neutral objectives available. Cloud Drake as a priority for H2K is fairly low. If this was an Infernal or a Mountain, they would probably have rushed to get that significantly earlier with the pressure they were creating in the bot lane. The fact that it's Cloud Drake means that Drake is just sat there, and Jankos is just trying to farm, and he's trying to outfarm a Rek'Sai who is faster around the map to get from camp to camp. And this Rek'Sai is getting particularly strong as well. You can see Wisdom very heavily farmed right now. A 125 to 78 is a fair disparity. It doesn't actually end up with too much gold, but the Rek'Sai herself is fairly healthy in the game right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big thing for Origin that they haven't been too far set back by a couple of the early plays that H2K were able to pull. And they're running out of options. They really are. The Essence Reaver's complete now on Nuclear, so he has a little bit more to work with in terms of CDR. But, they need to get in the mid lane and start trying to shut down Nehun if they really want to get much done. But they need AD to do it. With all that MR he's been stacking up, it is really hard, as you said, for Febiven to get involved and kill him.
And not only that, like Nation just walks up to the wave, pushes it out, walks away. It doesn't really matter to him that people are trying to dive him because he'll survive that. Wisdom trades with Jankos.
Yeah, he does. Now Wisdom is going to just barely make it out alive. Powers unleashed on Hiva, and Febiven gets a consolation prize. Now they're on to mid lane, and let's see if they have the minions to do it. It doesn't look like it.
H2K stretching themselves to try and get as much damage down as they can. Jankos will try and heal back up from his Void Spikes on the Rift Scuttler and then take the fruit as well so that he's healthy enough. But that was a hard-worked pick onto Hiva. Hiva opened himself up, and of course Febiven now with a Void Staff on top of it, looking to just smash through. Here comes Jankos from the side.
Chains, and they're bringing Shen to the party. Yehun, this is who they wanted. Odo gets the taunt. Odo finishes the kill. Che tanking towers. Sartorius twisted advance into Nuclear. They want to push him off this tower. Nuclear is not going to live, or is he? Flashing. Sartorius picking up the kill, and Odo trying to tank the line, but he finds himself in between all the remaining members of Origin, and they're firing him down. Chains on. Hiva's there. The rest of the team finishes him. Che and Febiven limping back as Jankos was way out of there. That did not go the way H2K wanted on the back half. It is a 1-for-2 trade against them.
H2K running out of damage before Sartorius really appears, and you can see that Maokai is the difference maker in this. The TP in, now Origin are the ones that, despite having their tower sieged for a little while, are the ones that are taking mid-tower first. This is a real misplay out of H2K to stick around in the mid lane and allow themselves to get TP'd on by Sartorius. Sartorius shows up, deals with everything they needed to.
Just about dead even on the gold right now as they polish off that tower to equalize 22 minutes into this game. And if you're H2K, you got to be thinking, what the hell happened?
I mean, Jankos was expecting to trade with Wisdom and doesn't realize that Wisdom is at least even on him here. And at this point, Febiven couldn't get quite around the corner, finally lands the damage down onto Hiva and takes him out. But Hiva joins into the second phase of this fight. This is how long this fight actually ended up going for, because the wave clear from Tabs, from Nation is significant enough to force this phase to come too late. H2K push up, Jankos tries the submarine, they land the Chains of Corruption, but Nation survives for so long. Again, this Rise isn't so weak that you can just dive him, and in comes Sartorius. 2v4 with Wisdom for a very long time in this, but the health bars on H2K are already chunked down. That Sartorius walks into the fight, says, hey, I'm Maokai, you're never going to be able to deal with me. And Origin end up coming out so far ahead from that play, at least when you look at it in an isolated chamber. They got the tower from mid lane.
Yep, and H2K looking to try and answer on the mid. We'll take a look at the damage that was dealt in the last fight. You can see the Kha'Zix just didn't have an impact, and that was because he was tanking tower. Every time you saw him in the replays trying to go on Wisdom again, they just weren't able to get involved after that initial delivery of Odo Omne.
The same could be said for Nation. 0 damage in that fight.
Well, he died really early, to be fair.
He was the one that got dived initially on that play. It was Hiva died first into Nation in the second phase. So if that Rise is able to get damage off, we've seen it start to be significant already. So if that fight happens again and Nation is able to get anything off, it's a little worrying for H2K.
I think it's fair to say it's a lot worrying at this point. 24 minutes into this game, and we talked about the ticking timer, and you have to think on Origin's side, they have so much power, and they have been playing pretty impressively together. Few mistakes here and there. Hiva going a little aggressive. Okay, that's what he does, we know. Wisdom has been playing it just fine. He's been escaping with his life when it's come down to it. He's picked back up the early farm game. Sartorius has done exactly what he needed to. I mean, this does not quite look like the crew of B-tier players that they've been billed as.
For now, yeah, that's fair to say. They're hanging with H2K fairly well in this part of the game. I think H2K right now, their comp is hindering themselves a little bit. They should, in their minds, oh, Che.
Oh boy, okay, so Che's got the shields on. Nahun's gonna have to run out of there. Wisdom is gonna try to finish, but the chains were on him. Origin got a little hyphy, and H2K punished there.
Well, you had to curse it, Pyra. Speaking about Origin not making mistakes,
time, right?
H2K, they were on the top side of the map, and from what looked like a bad situation, Sartorius, with a little bit of an error that we've seen time and time again from Challenger players, bot side, staying there with no TP. This Baron, Jankos is low, he got it.
Oh, he's going to be secured. Okay, there was no smite fight possibility, but they're blinking health bars. Still, H2K sensed a moment of weakness to be able to collapse on and therefore grab themselves a Baron. That's a big swing in their favor and a big mistake out of Origin that, you know, moves the gold 3K in H2K's direction.
It's a two-part mistake. Sartorius should not be showing bot side with no teleport when you know he TP'd and it's on cooldown. And at the same time, Origin shouldn't be pushing forward with Wisdom on the top side of the map when Sartorius is bot side with no TP. Like, that is a fairly easy mistake that a lot of teams will make, and a team like H2K seemingly will punish it time and time again.
Yeah, well, there's definitely something to be said for, you know, teams that have a little bit of anti-momentum when they get a little bit ahead, when they get a lot ahead and they think, it's okay, we're in the lead right now, we're cruising to a victory. You lose your head sometimes, and that's just not the way to play a game. So unfortunately, for OG, H2K were able to punish that in a big, big way, and now they're getting themselves a 1-3-1 on. Well, more of a 4-1 because the rest of H2K have come up top side. Hawkshot's going to spot Jankos and Che, but this tower is going to be polished off real soon as Nuclear is hurting the Baron and powered minions into it.
Odo's pushing bot side out as well, holding Sartorius down there. And H2K, from what looked like a rough position from them, Origin were in a good spot, and now H2K have turned the entire game around. This is the biggest difference between the teams we've seen all game long, and this Baron is going to crack open the Origin outer towers at least.
Yep, this will be number 4 for them, and you can still see Odoamne trying to peck away at the one in the bottom lane, so there really isn't a whole lot left here. Origin still trying to defend now. The big question for H2K is this lead that they've built themselves now going to be enough for them to close it out? It
needs to be more. They need more from this Baron buff. They need a really large advantage for themselves to offset the fact that Maokai and Ryze, oh wow, Hiva.
Yep, they go right for him. They know it's the easiest target, and Jankos unfortunately taking tower shots, dodging away the Ash Arrow, but Wisdom shuts him down with a flash on Burrow. And now Che and Nuclear and Febivent trying to make the most of this, finishing off the tower, unleashing the power, and they got the chains on the Nahun. Can they get him here? He's just able to flash away into tower range. Wisdom body blocking everything they can, but this is going to be an inhibitor turret here. Tabs trying to keep them off it. Sartorius got a twisted advance in, but they just keep pushing for the tower. It doesn't even matter. Sartorius might not die, but they can't defend, so another tower taken. H2K swings it 6-1 now.
And H2K in the second phase of that fight did not care about Sartorius and Tabs alone. They take down that tower. Had Nahun been there, it would have been a different story, but this was the start. Che over the wall, catches out Hiva. Again, that's the kind of position you have to be careful of around Azira. She will use the roots over the wall. Tabs doesn't quite hit the arrow, but it didn't really matter as Jankos fell anyway. And in phase 2, Nahun was caught out by Nuclear's ult, chipped down, forced back to the base, and the tower died before he could realm warp his way back into the fight.
Yeah, looked like Sartorius was able to stop Odoamne from channeling his Stand United 100% though, and that allowed them to shut down Jankos. So they got a little bit back for it. Hiva, oh boy. Okay, gotta be careful there. Odoamne, Nahun both here. The flash taunt lands at the last possible second, and even with the shields, they were nearly polished off. Clutch realm warp out of Nahun.
Yeah, gone from that skirmish, but gone is the ultimate from Nahun that would take Sartorius and Ryze into the back lane, the back side of the fight at least. We've seen it happen a couple of times. Febivent knows that somebody's around as Wisdom was in the bush. So this again is H2K trying to force them back. Odoamne will have his ultimate available soon. His teleport is up as well. And a second Dragon of the game has been started by H2K. It's a decent lead for themselves right now after the Baron buff has expired. It's not enough to say this game is done and dusted. This Ryze, this Maokai combination with the Rek'Sai and the engaged potential coming from Origin still has a lot of potency as we head later and later into this game.
But talking about potency, we really have to look to Febivent now because it looked like he was going to take a much more supporting role in this game. Well, I mean, he's sitting himself at a pretty 3 items with 3-0-2 on the board, so this is already starting to look a lot better for the H2K mid laner.
Oh, it's looking better, especially considering the... oh, hang on, Nuclear goes in.
Ooh, that's a swing and a miss, but Jankos comes in with a submarine. They've invested heavily to take down Tabs. They get him, but there's no minions here to push. There may be a timing window here that Origin can push with, but H2K are shoving their weight around.
Yeah, Origin are actually pinging mid-tower, trying to trade mid-inner in exchange, as Nation will be able to clear this wave fairly quickly.
They haven't backed yet. I mean, it's only Jankos that's gone back. Now, can he defend here?
H2K will be able to push the inhibitor tower way faster if Origin don't react in that mid lane.
Oh, man.
They're still late to this. Odo can tank this up for a while.
This was a big mistake. Origin got cold feet at the last moment, and now they lose not only one, but 2 towers here. Wisdom getting taunted, getting knocked back. The big Zyra ultimate, the big one out of Febiven. Wisdom inches away right now from death.
Here comes
and there's
Nahun.
an open Nexus or inhibitor, I should say. Nahun coming in, but they got the jump on him.
Great
They've taken him down. Odoamne with the finisher. Nuclear, he should fall here, but Sartorius might just trade his life. The Guardian Angel is popped, and he's gonna go down a second time. Wisdom, Hiva, Tabs trying to get involved, but they just can't do a thing. Jankos hopping over, finding Wisdom, gone in Viz, and they're right back on to the inhibitor, and there's an open one in mid.
A very precarious situation out of H2K in that bot side. As Ryze was coming down, they had to turn on him, and turn on him they did. Stun him down from Febiven, clean out the rest of his health bar, and Nahun could not survive. And that has really been the story of this game. At these pivotal moments, H2K have found Nahun and taken him out of fights before he's been able to wreck the H2K backline.
Let's take a look at how it all began. Again, we knew Nahun was on the way, but it was just too late.
It's a matter of time here. You just see him realm walk down into the lower side of the jungle, and H2K, look at how low their health bars are. They force out early heals, everything to try and keep Nahun down. The stun lands, they have the control ward to see him coming, and everything connected out of H2K that they needed it to on Ryze. Otherwise, that was a real tough spot to get themselves out of. They take out Maokai to finish it off after the Guardian Angel, and now H2K are in a dominant position.
Yeah, Jankos himself is finding a lot of solace in the fact that he is just nice and fed this time around, has a bit more survivability, the Maw and Malmortius, he has the Edge of Night for himself. The assassination potential has turned into full-on blow teams up potential for this entire squad. This is looking really good if H2K can keep the pressure on.
And in the last 32 minutes of gameplay, we've talked about Febiven low damage early, Ryze would have late game damage, everything should be all right for Origin if they get to this stage. Well, Febiven has done over 20,000 damage, Nahun has barely done 6,000 damage in 32 minutes of play as Ryze.
Oh no.
Typically, Ryze starts putting out monster numbers.
Yeah, well, it's also going to be Kha'Zix putting out monster numbers right now as he does get stopped up for just a second. Ash Arrow goes, but they've caught Nahun once again. Power's unleashed on him. They can't get the stun out. Origin might just be able to get back, but look at the bottom. Odoamne is pushing on Nexus turrets.
Not only that, they force the Ryze out of the fight as well and turn for the Baron. Odoamne, yes, he's creating presence, but Nahun again is not getting damage out in any of these fights. He is unable to stay alive long enough to turn the damage back around.
Yeah. Big difference between these two mid laners, and a lot of experience on Febiven's side definitely coming to play for him as H2K secure themselves another Baron as we head 33 minutes into this game. It is a 9,000 gold edge, 8 towers to 2. Origin are bleeding out.
They really are. They need a significant hold here with 2 inhibitors down. They need one good fight where Nahun doesn't die, but now he's got no Flash Pyro. He cannot get away the next time that happens. He hasn't got anything to get himself out of a tricky situation. The Seraph's Embrace is on cooldown. No further defensive activatable items for the Ryze. He is alone, basically, unless his team are completely with him throughout the fight. Nahun has it all on his shoulders.
They're going to need the perfect engage, or rather the perfect counter engage here to try and make something happen, but Jankos is already pushing on Wisdom. If they get caught out and lose a member, it's going to be nigh impossible to defend their base here. As you can see, on 3 fronts, H2K is pushing. Baron and powered minions all the way through.
And the items have come out in response as well. QSS for Nuclear, Edge of Night comes out for Jankos. They've tried to cut through the healing with a Mortal Reminder. They've got a second Executioner's Calling as well. Everything is trying to slow down the regenerative effects that Origin have across the board there. They're trying to cut through the tanks, cut through everything, and end this game as quickly as they can.
Yeah, they just don't care at this point on H2K's side. He finish off that inning. That's fine, we just got it, doesn't matter. And now it's Nexus turrets, super minions, and a desperate pushback. Sartorius, poor guy's just been locked up right in front of this turret, desperately trying to save it, and Odo can just dance around him constantly. This is the end game for H2K if they can finish it. However, Che is caught. They get the ultimate out of Odawane. Wisdom gone in, but it doesn't matter. Nuclear will finish him off. Yang goes, no, he's gonna fall, and Nehun right after him, but it is blow for blow. 2 kills for 2. Odawane not nailing the taunt, but they still got Hiva in the end. Nuclear finishes the job, and it's all on Tabs and Sartorius to hold back this push.
Yeah, they cannot hold it back. Tabs left alive. Sartorius came back to try and defend him, and Origin reached a little too far trying to kill Che in that exchange, and H2K kill the Nexus.
Game over at 35 minutes in. H2K finish the job.
Game 1 of the 2017 Spring Split for EU done, and it's H2K off to a slow start, but it's a victory at the end.